It's on YouTube, by the way.
It will be.
I see.
Hmm.
All right, we're good whenever you're ready.
Intimidating.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the 24 Down podcast. It is your co host, Wolfie, here. So, we are on episode number 28 now, which is pretty crazy to think that we're getting close to that 30 mark. I am joined here by my co host for tonight, Josh Hadmaker, the pod father. How's it going, Hat?
It's going good. I want to correct you on one thing. You said that you're the co-host. I mean, I guess technically yes, but for this episode, you are the host and I am the
Oh,
co-host.
okay.
Mhm.
Give yourself the proper credit here.
Fair enough. So I am the host, and Josh Hatmaker Hat is my co-host, and I'm very excited because we have a guest tonight, the one and only Josh Lee. How's it going, Josh?
Good, good. Glad to be here, man.
I'm very excited. I was really looking forward to this episode. I think I can't even remember how long ago as I first messaged you about it, but I know you got on the 24th episode that we had, and
Yep.
we're just really glad to have you with us tonight. So, real quick, I know Hat kind of started doing this a few episodes back, but can you share first what years you were at and what your time? I guess yeah, what years you were at Valley Forge?
Yeah, I was there 2005 to 2009.
Okay,
Yeah.
4 years. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that, we're just going to open up, kind of let you share what life has been, what things have been like, and what you've been up to since graduating from Valley Forge.
Yeah. So I graduated 2009 and immediately went into seminary, so grad school. So that was pretty interesting. By the second year, I was in seminary. Like, my brain was fried. Going from college 4 years to another rigorous academic school. Man, that was tough. While I was in seminary, I was also serving as a youth pastor at a church in Horsham, PA. Um, so we so I was a youth pastor, one of five pastors serving a youth ministry. We had about 170, 180 students um, in Horsham, PA. So that was pretty hectic. Even though I was working part time, like there's always part time pay, but never part time work. It's always full time work. So being a full time student and also being kind of like a full time like working youth pastor, that was pretty strenuous. So that was fun. I wouldn't change it for the world. I graduated seminary in 2013, and I was in the area until 2016. So I got ordained in 2016. I stayed in the area, so I was a pastor at that church for about 7 years. Um, got ordained in 2016, and at my ordination, a handful of 2-4 down guys came up, and that was like the greatest thing ever. That was so awesome. Just to see these two worlds collide, right? My seminary friends and my life in seminary, what in the people that in my life that came into play, and also come and have 2-4 down guys come, man, that was the greatest thing in the world. I think the 2-4 down guys who came into the ordination definitely diversified the people who were there. People are thinking like, who are these white people? Like, and it's like a big Korean church, right? And everybody had Asians, right? I'm ordained in
Hmm.
the Korean American Presbyterian Church, all Koreans, and they see like these bald-headed like guys with long beards, right? They're like, who invited these biker gang like members? Um, and it was really cool just to see, how important. I mean, that was like my in your face to the Korean American church. It's like, yo, like we got to diversify, kind of thing. There's a bigger world outside than the Korean American community, and so, man, I was really elated to have everybody there, but it was also like a proud moment where it's like, man, like Man, these 2-4 guys really pulled through, and that was really encouraging. It was such a memorable moment. My only regret was not being able to spend more time with you guys that night.
Do you
So
remember who it was? Who all was there from 24?
I think
Just curious.
Eugene, Francis, it was who else came through? Um, shoot, I'm so bad. Rizzo came through. Andrew came through. I think
Nice.
Matt Matias came through as well. Um, yeah, it was a handful of 2-4 down guys, and yeah, I apologize for not remembering everybody. That night was that was hectic night, by the way. But yeah, so I really appreciated everybody who came through. So got ordained in 2016, and I transitioned out of the youth minister position to actually go home to Tennessee. My dad, I'll get into this later, I guess, but my dad is a pastor, and I went home because during that time, my mom was just coming out of having surgery for breast cancer. And so I felt kind of guilty not being able to be at home supporting my family or being there. And so I took a transition out from youth ministry, the place I've been, which I loved, by the way. It was really a great ministry where I've learned all the things I felt like I could have learned from that ministry. And at that point, I was like, man, I really need to put into practice everything that I've learned. And so I thought I could move and transition out. And so I went to my dad's church in Tennessee, initially telling him, this is going to be a short-term plan because, first of all, he and I, different theological backgrounds now, and so helped to set up a youth ministry, something like an education program there, help him out while being at home, being close to the family. And then, stayed there for 3 years. And that was from 2016 to 2019. And then I recently moved to Maryland, Gaithersburg, Maryland, in January of this year. So I've been here ever since, stuck here because of COVID-19. But yeah, so that's my life in a nutshell.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions I have following up from that is, so you went to seminary for 4 more years after Valley Forge.
Yeah, man.
What? Yeah. What made, so I guess I could probably understand that maybe just Valley Forge wasn't enough education, but no, really, so what made you make that decision? What was it after graduating, or maybe before you graduated, decided to say hey, maybe I'd like to go and do some more schooling, specifically seminary?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, when I graduated from Valley Forge, I think what their strong suit was, especially for the pastoral ministry degree, was they did well in training, how to do practical things, what to look forward to, give you the basics of what it meant to preach or whatnot, which honestly, I learned how to preach a lot later, how to write sermons a lot later. But anyways, that's beside the point. I think Valley Forge gave me kind of the guardrails of what ministry kind of looked like. But if I was to be serious about pastoral ministry and what that looked like for longevity's sake, by the time I graduated Valley Forge, I was like, man, I really do need more training theologically. I need more training in other, specifically theologically. And while I'm in seminary, get more ministry practice before I head out on my own, or whatever that looked like, and however the Lord would lead me. And so I think for me at that point, I realized that I was not fully equipped to do really good ministry on my own. And so, yeah, I decided to go to seminary while I was in my 3rd and 4th year of Valley Forge. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I think a lot of people graduate maybe Valley Forge with a pretty big head. Mm-hmm. And so it just sounds like a very like humble approach, which is totally like who you are to say like,
Yeah. Actually, you're giving me too much credit, because when I went to seminary, there's a lot of people who went to seminary without any like Bible college. They would go to different schools, like secular work, like their degrees and whatnot. Actually, I was one of the younger people in seminary. Like, um, I remember seeing like people who had ministry experience already. They were already elders or deacons at their church. I was sitting in class with people who were balding, who had white hair. And I'm looking around like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, and I realized like, so stepping in, I thought I knew enough theology. And I was so humbled. I was so humbled by my first and second semester in seminary. I realized how little I knew, actually. And so I feel like God like really just spanked me in my first two semesters in seminary. And I was like, all right. And by the time I graduated, to be honest, like I was like, all I learned was how little I know. And this is me graduating graduate school, just diving in theology for 4 years, learning the biblical languages, doing all these things. I still like, I'm really just really just now grasping what theology is about. Yeah. So yeah, you gave me too much credit, man. I was arrogant stepping into seminary. I just really got humbled. Yeah.
I want to say something about what you just said, and pulling a quote from, you just said that all you learned was how little you knew.
Yeah.
And I think that alone is something greater than a lot of people do learn. So for you to understand that and acknowledge that, I think shows like learning that is not a bad thing. Like that's a very good thing to learn, like how little you know, and to have that realization. And I think it kind of sets you up to be more diligent and more focused and everything like that. So I don't look at it as a bad thing personally. Like I look at it as you had that realization, and that's huge.
Yeah. Honestly, I learned the hard way, man. I learned the hard way. So that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And you said you were one of 5 pastors or youth pastors?
One of 5 youth pastors for my youth ministry at that point.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we had one big honcho, like head honcho. He still is my mentor pastor. But he's been there for over 17 years now. Yeah, he was 17 years when I went in. So it's like, over 20 some years in youth ministry at the same church. And yeah, man, that's a guy that I look up to. I learned a lot in that ministry. Still look him up. I still talk with him, keep in touch with him. So yeah, man.
Yeah, it's just like I help out with like my youth group still that I grew up in actually, and then so I guess that's kind of how I use my degree. But but that like I think at most we ran like 100 students or have had like 100 students, so like double that just sounds, and they've had at most 2 youth pastors, so like having a youth group that size just sounds like actually constantly crazy. I don't know.
No, I really appreciated how the church allowed us to do that. Although they didn't pay us very well. Actually, some of them didn't even get paid while they were there, even though they were also seminarian students. But I really appreciated, like I realized at that point that pastoral ministry doesn't have to be lonely. Pastoral ministry doesn't have to be on one person's shoulder, but really set up a model of what it means to do team ministry. And so I thought I really appreciated that and really learned from that. And that's what I definitely want to strive for in the future.
Yeah, I think it was Majetsky that said, and I think you almost like said it like verbatim. Like I think he said maybe you remember. I think it was like part-time ministry or part-time pay or part-time hours, full-time ministry or something like that. Like, Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
It's so funny because I thought this was a Korean American church type of thing, Korean immigrant church thing, but it's not. It's like all across the board. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
yeah.
Well,
It's a shame for sure.
I, I I don't know, like, yeah, maybe you might get mad at me for this. I don't want to let you off the hook here because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are wondering. You know, you brought up everything post Valley Forge, and your career and stuff. So you kind of like touched on your career, but you didn't go too much into your your personal life. So do you have any ladies? Do you have any aspirations of kids? Do you have any kids that we don't know about? Like,
Why I wondered myself, like, do I have kids running around that I don't know about? Um,
Oh,
just kidding. Um, so yeah. So I appreciate that. Actually, even when I was in Valley Forge and in seminary, man, like my life was just like work, church, and my bed. Like that was my life. And so like, yeah, and dude, like work-life balance sucks. I'm terrible at it. Um, but yeah, so actually I was engaged last year and I broke it off at the end of the year. Um, and yeah, so that was that. Um, I think one of the things that really I really identified, especially during the podcast, was like Rick Feltenberger's episode about how I guess it's I'm really just giving the gist of what he said was like when he gave himself up to his like his ex-wife. Um, yeah, I totally resonated with that because in that relationship, like I don't want to speak bad about her, but I really did give to like it's really interesting because when I look at scripture and I look at Ephesians chapter 5, the husband, like a husband's rule to his wife, when I look at scripture or what, especially how like Christ, like how he loved the church and self-sacrificially, I thought that was my rule. And I think that's everybody's rule, right? Especially in relationship. I think I took it to the most extreme and not healthy way personally, and where I compromise myself, like my own integrity. Not that I should be selfish, but I should be, um, yeah. And so, like, what I did was I compromised a lot of the things that I held value to for the sake of the other person, thinking that that was the most biblical, most godly way. But I realized at that point, what instead of sacrificing well, I began to idolize that person in my life, and then began to live my life according to the other person. Which, when we take that kind of view, I guess, with another person, we inordinately shape our affections in our life and our also significance. What I ended up doing was finding my significance in that other person to the degree where I was just killing myself. Like I was like dying inside, thinking that this is what I was supposed to be doing. Although we are to die to ourselves, I don't think in that sense we should be dying to ourselves, right? So I think I came to the realization really late to the game in that relationship. And the best thing that when I was looking towards the future, especially in that relationship, I saw for like pretty clearly that one day one of us is going to resent one another, and it would probably be most likely be me resenting her. And I don't think that would have been that's not an ingredient that you look forward to in a future marriage. So yeah. So right now I am single. Um, I do want to get married. I do want to have a family. Um, so yeah, that's what it is.
well, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that you are gonna make an awesome husband and an awesome father, and there's some girl out there that is going to be very lucky. That there's no doubt in my mind of that. So
Appreciate it, man. Can you just tell her and just call me?
yeah.
You didn't know his hat was just building your Tinder profile for you.
Yeah.
No, I think that's is a very brave move. I have had friends like since college that kind of like jumped into marriage and like all the red flags were there, like don't do it. And then like, some of them lasted a year, some of them it was like, 7 years, and then just one day that like you said, that resentment. So to recognize before that, there's always compromise in relationships.
Yeah.
But like, it's one thing to be like, I don't know, like, I don't want to paint the room that color. And my wife does. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll paint the room that color, versus like where you're compromising like who you are as a core, like at the core as your person, like where you're waking up every day saying like this, I'm not being me. And so, to recognize that, and it's tough too, because most people don't want to be single, and to say like, am I better off like out of this relationship than in, and making that leap. Like, I applaud you for that. That's pretty like brave and difficult, but it's good that you did that, man.
Yeah. It's definitely difficult. I think I'm still processing through it. Like, my question is like when is enough time to actually process and get over a person? Like, when is that? Like, I still don't know, right? Like, it's been what, 9 months, 10 or almost 11 months, right? I still don't know. But I think it's a slow process, prayerful process, really. Yeah, to be honest, like, it's something that I had to do. It's not, even though it sucked, like, it really, like, it's not I didn't break up because I hated her or she did something terribly wrong. Like, that was not the breakup. And it's like really hard to explain that to somebody. Like, you guys just break up for what? Like, for that? Are you serious? Like, it's like, yeah, I did. Because I think at the heart of it is like, because I love the other person and I didn't want to see or put that person in a position like that would hurt even more later on, or even put myself in that position. I would be doing her and myself a disservice. And so it was something that I needed to do.
Well, so I'm not trying to turn this into like Dr. Hat's love line or whatever and like give you relationship advice or anything like that. I'm probably one of the last people you want to take relationship advice from.
I mean, you're married, so you're ahead of me, Beth.
So there's a few things that I wanted to just real quick bring up based on like what you said. And the first thing is you asked the question like, okay, well, how long am I supposed to like process this and everything like that?
Yeah.
And just for me, from a personal experience, like before I met my wife, there was a girl that I was dating, ish, whatever. I was way more into it than she was, whatever. Long story short is like, when things like ended, I mean, I'm not joking. It was 2-3 years of like, she was always still on my mind. I couldn't and it took me 2-3 years to like, so like, I don't put a time frame of like what is correct, what is not correct. Maybe a month from now it's not going to be an issue, and for you it'll be 10 months. Maybe it'll be a year from now. Like, there is no right or wrong time frame. It's what you personally have to go through and deal with. So that was number one. Number two, the other thing I could tell you is, so with my wife, like, now I'm going to say like, there was something that changed, but not like, again, it wasn't changing in a matter of I'm accepting something different or I'm whatever. But with every relationship, every girl prior to my wife, there was a different feeling. And I'm sure Wolfie probably experienced the same thing with his wife. There was a different feeling of like whether it's like, oh, this is fun or oh, this is whatever, but there was never that like long-term thought. And if there was, it wasn't a lasting long-term thought. When I met my wife, it was very instant. Like I
Yeah.
knew I knew within the first, and this is kind of sounds crazy, but I knew within the first few weeks, like this is like in you'll experience that, and you'll know like it's going to feel different than every other person that you've had, relationships with, or whatever. At
Yeah.
least that's how my experience is.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I agree. I back that up. I mean, my wife and I started dating in college. Actually, so kind of funny. I pretty sure. Yeah, I remember getting a relationship advice from you, Josh Lee, like one time.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know this.
I remember it was. I think it was senior year, and I think you came down to my room to talk to me about something, and like senior year was like a whole other thing for me. But like, I think it was more you were sharing about like, seeing your parents in ministry and like going into like, at that time I think still questioning whether I wanted to go into full-time ministry or not. Like I hit that kind of pivotal point my senior year,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like you had given me advice at least of, what you saw and like how your parents kind of balanced marriage and ministry. And I do remember that. So you have given relationship advice before. So, but yeah, I mean, just to piggyback what Hat said, like you'll find someone, and we'll keep you in our prayers for, it's difficult too, and so like it's different for everybody. Like getting over a relationship, because some people it's a fling, some people it can go into like almost getting close to the point of marriage. Like there's no, like Hat said, there's no one way that somebody experiences it. It's going to be different for everybody. But I was definitely praying for you, man. And
I appreciate it.
as White Chocolate would say, I hope you find your love me long time.
No, but I do agree with you guys. I think for me right now where I'm at is I definitely am over the relationship. I know that it's finished, right? That it's concluded. But there are moments where I do think about the other person. Like I think it's like fits of loneliness. I think there's moments where I think about like future and like different aspects of relationships, and I immediately go back to that previous relationship. But I'm over it. Like I think I'm over it, but there's moments and hints of like moments of previous relationships that come in. But yeah, I wonder like when that would stop. Like I think I could be okay to date right now, right? Like I'm to that point, and I'm okay with her to be in another relationship. I actually would applaud that and would be very happy. Um, like I'm already to that point, but like there's other things like man, like how do our process of the past hurts? Am I being overly fearful of X, Y, and Z? But yeah, I think no, I appreciate what you guys are saying. Yeah. No, thank you guys for keeping me in your prayers.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for opening up. It's not something that's easy or most people are willing to open up about. So we definitely appreciate that.
I feel like these podcasts are more fun when people are like more down to earth, for sure.
Yeah. I talked about on mine, like we are an authentic group. So like that's how we're going to be. We're going to be down to earth. Like
Yeah.
we're going to be who we are as people. Like we're not going to come on here, put on a show, like just for like shits and giggles. Like we're going to be real. And sometimes it's like really real, and sometimes it's really fun. And
for sure.
It's good. So, Hat, did you have anything else you wanted to follow up with?
No, I mean, the only other thing I really want to say is like, I know because I've been there, like, I know there's portions of like hearing that kind of thing, like, oh, you'll find the right one that it just, I hated hearing that. I hated hearing that. So like, I hate myself for even saying that to you.
Yes.
But like, know that it is true. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. But yeah, I take it fully. So I really appreciate you guys for even saying it.
And if it's a while and you get lonely, get a pet.
actually,
Yeah.
you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here, and well, you want to have a family anyway. I was gonna tell you, like, maybe you should like not get married, because once you do, Wolfie's gonna hound you to have kids, but you want to
Oh, hell yeah.
you want to have a family anyway. I don't hear
Not happening.
Wolfie
Yeah.
bugs me all the time about having kids, and I'm like, listen, I'm probably not having kids, but
Mhm.
you want to anyway, so
Yeah.
ignore me.
When are you going to have kids? Also, Josh, you don't have to get married to have kids. So if you want to have kids too, it's cool.
Well, bro, get behind me, Zane.
All right, we're gonna hop into some questions. So we got
Please,
a
make it fun.
good amount of questions, man, and there's some really good ones. There's some pretty funny ones.
Cool.
So yeah, we're gonna jump into it. So we're gonna start with questions from Buddha. So I'm just gonna go kind of through them one at a time. So his first question is, what was your first impressions of 24 Down, the guys, and the physical building?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and I think I did come up for a breakaway, and so I think my first experience was at a breakaway, like the year before I came to Valley Forge, and they put me in 24 Down, and one of my memories, I was like, dude, we're prospective students, we should be getting like this treatment, and they're making us sleep on this dirty floor in this like extended like trailer like building, and so like they put me, I forget, but it was like on the floor of 24 Down in the breakaway. I think I remember, honestly, I think it was like 2004, and during that breakaway I think I remember Buddha there. I don't know if he remembers me or not during the breakaway, but I think that was my first exposure to Buddha and some of the guys on 24 Down. But yeah, that was my first impression. Actually, when I came to Valley Forge, my first year I was in Bongiorno Hall. Actually, that's where I was first at. Bongiorno was great. It had great facilities. It had all these stuff. But I remember like in my second semester, I started hang out more in 24 Down, because that's when that's where Samsung lived his first year. Actually, Samsung and I are like childhood friends. We've known each other since middle school. And so yeah, just knowing him, knowing where he was at, yeah, just hung out at 24 Down all the time in my first year. During my second semester, but yeah, I just remember my first impression was just the people. Like I didn't even care about the building really, and yeah, so I really enjoyed the people 24 Down. I really appreciated like Buddha. I remember like my first year, I was like, man, Buddha's like the coolest guy ever. Like I got to be friends with him. And I remember, I forget, like some of the 24 Down guys, I think Walter was there. I don't know if you remember him, but Walter was like a Hawaiian guy that came to Valley Forge. And so we stood out a lot. Walter and Buddha were like best friends, I think, in my first year. But he actually left after my first year at Valley Forge. But yeah, I didn't really, honestly, the building, I didn't really care about the building at that point. Like, because I knew 24 Down was something special, this is a place I wanted to be. I actually came out of Bongiorno Hall before they even switched it to women's dormitory. I actually asked to move into 24 Down the year after. So I didn't really care about the building. We just really enjoyed the people. I thought people was cool. So that was that. Yeah.
I can't believe they put people. So first of all, I can't believe they put people on 24 Down for breakaway. Like,
yeah. I was like,
why don't you just put them out back by the dumpster when they come visit? Like,
you want students to come to this school? Yeah.
Like I think that's one thing that has not been brought up on this podcast yet is breakaway. And if it has, it's just been very briefly.
Yeah.
But like I remember my first year, maybe year and a half, like when the breakaway kids would come, like I was kind of excited, like, oh, this is fun. Like I get to like who's gonna be staying in my room. And I think after time, like it was kind of like, oh, this is breakaway week again. Like, but it'd be interesting to hear like people's, if people have breakaway stories like from people that they had in their room or whatever. Yeah, because I don't think breakaway's really been brought up that much in this podcast.
Yeah. I don't know. Like for me, it was just like it's just a flitter of a memory, but I just remember like unpacking my sleeping bag, sleeping on the floor, and it's like this dirty floor. I remember having breakaway students in my room a couple times. I think you had to sign up, right? You had to sign up to have breakaway students.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
I must have never signed up.
Like honestly, as an RA, I was like, oh my gosh, why is this person going? Like, why did this guy sign up for a breakaway student? But yeah, it was wild, man. It was okay. It was fun.
That's
yeah.
Okay. I like don't ever remember breakaway kids in 24 Down when I was there. Maybe because at that point none of us signed up, but or maybe the school wised up and was like,
There was a handful of people. I remember having to take the prospective students to really be defensive, like be like, hey, like I was preparing them. It's like, hey, this is not the best kind of dorm.
Like you're like, see that door down there? Wolfie lives in there, and don't go to that side of the hall.
Yeah, it's like, don't go into the middle bathroom. There is a huge fungus like growing. There's a huge mold growing in the bathroom. Don't go that one. Just go to the end one. Man, I had to really sell 24 Down. Be like, hey, you see that hole? Like we play, we play like dodgeball here. We play soccer in these halls. But yeah, it was fun, man.
Interesting.
Definitely interesting.
Yeah, the other cool thing he said was just like the building, like it just didn't matter. Like, and I think we talk like a lot on the podcast too, like about like how like pretty much like how crappy it was and that there really wasn't like any like thing special. So like that really like forced us to lean into each other and like not expect certain things. Like when you're in Bongiorno, you just expect to have everything there. You can stay in your room, where at 24 we didn't have that. So like people were just out there like hanging out in the hallways and stuff. Yeah. And I think that's totally true. Like, and that's why like this is happening, like, because 24 Down is more than just that location. It's this group and this family. And so like, obviously like right now, none of us are in that building, and yet here we are still talking regularly and doing this. So definitely more than a building. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the relationships formed for sure.
So Buddha's second question is, he wants to know who you think the weirdest guy and the smoothest guy on 24 Down is. He used to say the coolest, but he said we're all cool.
Yeah.
So weirdest and smoothest.
There was a lot of weird people. Like, to be honest, I don't remember their names, but I just remember there's a guy who lived at the end of the hall with a hat, like a cowboy hat, or he always wore that Indiana Jones hat. He was real skinny.
Is it Dan Hand?
No, Dan. No, he was my ARA once, but I think Hat. Do you remember?
I can't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, he did not take part in 24 Down at all. Like he had friends elsewhere, but he was a small, like he was a tallish, like hair, like he had longer hair. He had Indiana Jones hat. That was one. I mean, two guys that really come to mind is a guy named Paul. He was cool, but man, the guy was overly spiritual guy. I get weirded out by overly spiritually people. So he was interesting. He was a very interesting guy. Very eccentric. Another eccentric guy was Kevin, the guy who would. You guys remember Kevin? He would. I think he was pretty good at soccer. Man.
Oh, Kevin O'Connor?
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connor. He was very eccentric too. Like I could not put a finger on that guy. There's some days he's cool, and sometimes he's just really just out of there. But yeah, those are the weirdest guys that I thought was on the floor.
I have a theory about Kevin, but I want to let Hat speak first.
So I don't know if Kevin listens to this podcast. Probably not. And even if he did, I wouldn't care, because I would tell this to him to his face. And I hope that he eventually does listen and comes on, because I think he'd be a great guest.
Yeah.
I remember, really, kind of like you said, there were times where, like, and then not exactly how you said, this is my own spin on it. There were times I really liked Kevin, and there were times I really disliked Kevin.
Yeah.
And it was just no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
But I think now, like the way I am now, I think if him and I like reconnected, he'd be like a great friend.
Yeah. 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 It was just weird in college because he would just flip on a switch and he just become this weird dude. And then like another flip, he just mellow out. It's like weird. Like he had these extremes. And I could never tell which Kevin I was going to get. So that was just like an extremely weird thing. Yeah. But he was really good at soccer. I mean, he would always practice dribbling out in the front of like my window, actually. I'm like, dude, what the heck? When I was living right near the glass door. So I had that small room near the glass door. And so that's where he would practice all the time.
Yeah, he was really good. I remember like playing indoor soccer, and he would come out and play and like just hop in and just like kill it for like a minute and then like hop out.
Because he was catching his breath.
Yeah.
I don't think
So
his was that good.
I think there were times when he was really mellow, and I think he was mellow he had a very good reason to be mellow, because that dude was high all the time. So maybe, I don't know what he was high on. Maybe that's what changed, but I got along with him really well, I think, my senior year too. And he was a pretty cool guy, but he did have like moments where it would just be like a different person. And you're like, I thought you were mellow, and now you're like freaking out. Like,
Yeah. Man. So those are the weirdest guys. I think the smoothest guys, though, the smoothest guy is a tie between Hat and Mikey.
Oh, it's got to be Mikey then. Don't give me this.
No, because I think the smoothest, because it seemed like Hat and Mikey could just get out of trouble whenever they wanted to.
oh,
I think they'll just do something really wild, and they'll laugh it off, and everybody would be like accepting of it, even though it's like
true.
this was like really dumb, but I guess it's cool.
All right, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
I like that. Smooth, like nothing sticks. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yep. So I think Mikey and Hat really took that. Had a 2-4 down. Yeah. I think if anybody did the same things as Mikey and Hatmaker did, like it would not fly. Like if anybody else took a dump in the bathroom, like on the floor, I don't think everybody would have crucified him. But because Mikey did it, like it was okay. It was funny. Like we wanted, like, do it again. It's the smoothest guys.
The ironic thing about that, when you say like me and Mikey, and you bring up that story, was I can tell you now. I mean, people probably know this, but the person encouraging Mike to do that exact thing more than anybody else was me. So like,
oh man.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I think there was a time where you were growing sea monkeys, right, in your room. I think you took a dump in that bowl too.
So hold on. I want to set the record straight here. It was triops, which is basically sea monkeys.
Okay.
And there was a dump taken in the bowl, but it was not by me. It was by one Thomas Rizzo.
Oh wow. So okay. Yeah, I'm really sure that you encouraged Tom Rizzo to do that too.
For sure. Most of the things that were wacky that happened in 24 down or pushed buttons or whatever,
You instigated it.
if I didn't do it, I was instigating it. For sure.
I see. Yeah. The smoothest guys. I mean, you're proving my point. Yeah. So those are the two weirdest and the two smoothest. Yeah.
So the person who pooped in a sea monkey bowl is not the weirdest person on 24.
No.
Actually,
no,
people have Tom's. I think the most common one that people say is the smoothest. So
yeah, he
there
is
you go.
smooth. He's a smooth in a different area. Like,
Yeah,
there's another category of smooth on that part, but
yeah.
the few people that I think the most is because Tom Rizzo can't get away with everything though. Like, right? Only I think Hatmaker and Mikey could get away with anything. They could murder a person and be like, yeah, like that's cool.
Oh, Mikey.
Oh, Mikey.
Just murdered somebody.
Yeah.
So Buddha's third question, and then he's got one more. So his third question is favorite professor and class.
Oh, man, that's tough. Favorite professors. I'm gonna cheat. I think I have favorite professors. I had Brubaker. I loved him. I loved how down to earth he was. No pretense or anything. He just wanted to teach, right? And he was fair. Like he was incredibly fair to everybody. And I really enjoyed Old Testament survey. Yeah, like one of the favorite memories in that class was that, like we had to draw, right? Like we had to draw pictures depicting something in like a book if we covered it. And one of my drawings was actually selected by Brubaker. I loved his him reading from his blue book. I loved the poem that he read. Dippold, I loved his classes. I loved him because he was the most, even though he was spiritual, like he was articulate, he was smart, and he was balanced in his teaching. A lot of people do not like him, but I love Jerome Douglas. Like, they thought his classes were boring. Some of it was boring, but man, this guy, like, he was persistent in the stuff that he taught. Like, he was faithful, and so I really appreciated him. Actually, I think in our class, I think I took the most classes from him than anybody. Like, if he had a class, I took it.
Did you have? I had like Pentateuch with him at like 7:55 Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That was tough, man. That was a rough class. We might have been in that class together.
But I appreciate him. I had that class. I had another prophets class, and I had another historical books class with him. So I really liked him. I like Bruce Marino too. I think Marino was down to earth. So down to earth. He was a little quirky. I love that quirkiness, and he actually wrote some of my recommendations when I was applying to seminary. So
I think Marino and Douglas are both still there.
Oh,
I think they both still teach there. I'm pretty sure Marino does. I think Douglas might, and I know Brubaker. See like stuff on Facebook. I think he retired, but he still does a lot with the school too.
Yeah. So I know Jerome Douglas is there. I think he's like dean of education now or something like that.
Nice.
Because I know someone who tried to apply for a teaching position at a school and was asking me about some of the staff. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, what was the professor, the NASA professor?
Ike Coffer.
Ike Coffer.
Like, yeah.
I loved Ike Coffer just because of his craziness. Marino, I don't want to like defame the guy because I didn't have many classes with him, but I liked him a lot. And I don't know if this was like folklore, so I'm going to ask either one of you to verify, or I'll ask you a question. Do either one of you know something that he had in his office that would be weird for him to have in his office?
Marino?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've been to his office a couple of times because I had to ask him for like a recommendation, but
I can't remember if I saw it myself or if somebody
Bong?
told me, and it
No.
what'd you say?
The bong? Is that what you're?
He might have, because
Maybe a
he
hookah?
was
I don't
like,
know.
he'll tell you like he was into drugs and stuff in like the 70s. Oh, you're on mute again, Hat.
Oh, sorry. I'm almost positive that he had a bong in his office. Like not like hiding either.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I saw it with my own eyes or if somebody told me, but I couldn't remember like so I wasn't sure like is that true or did I make that up in my mind?
I think I remember something resembling that, but I'm not too sure. I think it's like just because you said it, you just like inceptioned me. But I remember something like that in his office, whether it be like a hookah or like a bong. I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, now it's funny because I wanted to say hookah, so maybe it was a hookah, but he definitely like I feel like he had something in there where it was like,
Yeah.
all right, this guy's all right, I like this guy. You know?
Yeah. No, he was like really down to earth. I think the school made special provisions for him to be at the school too.
Now, before Wolfie asks his next Buddhist final question, I don't know if I have the okay to do this, but I'm gonna do it regardless. Wolfie, are you shaking your head no?
Oh no, I'm saying yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna announce right now that because you brought up professors, and one of the professors that you brought up was Brubaker. We actually have Brubaker scheduled for the 24 Down podcast.
Dude, that's amazing. Dude, that is amazing.
And like honestly, like all credit to Buddha for lining that up. Like
Okay.
Buddha was the
Yo,
one
that's
that lined
Buddha.
it up. But yeah, Brubaker's coming on the 24 Down podcast.
Dude, that is so sick. That is so sick. Yeah, like he was definitely one of my. I wish I had more classes with him, or I wish he was teaching more classes because I feel like he really did an incredible job at the things that he did. So, yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yep, he's gonna be on it. It's
Yeah,
nuts.
definitely. I mean, I listen to all the podcasts, like 24 Down podcasts, but like that's something I'm really looking forward to for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So Buddha's last question is your favorite Buddha moment.
I don't know. There's too many, man. Like, no homo, but just having him run down the hallway like butt naked was like the funniest thing ever. Yeah, man. Don't change, Buddha. Be who you are, man. I know you're doing this whole like health thing, but don't change, man. I love you, man. I love your shape, all shapes.
Yeah, I mean, you can't when you think of Buddha moments, you can't not think of that. Like because it happened enough times, and it was just like,
yeah,
it's that's a great answer.
yeah.
All right, so our next questions here come from Matthew Matthias.
Okay.
He's probably gonna hate that I said Matthew. They come from Matt Matthias. His first question is he says, "Yo, Josh, I can't wait to hear about your transition from Pentecostalism to Presbyterian theology."
Oh, yeah. Actually, this happened while I was at Valley Forge, which is pretty ironic because Valley Forge is all about AG doctrine and things like that. It was actually, I think I started to formulate like so. First of all, it's more Reformed theology, but I just didn't know it at that time. Presbyterianism came out after while I was in seminary, but Reformed theology, yeah. So I think by the end of my Valley Forge years, I was really thinking about like direction and theology, being serious with that. And there was a lot of questions that I had, especially about AG doctrine and AG theology. And I came to the point where it's like, man, there's like this thing that I don't really understand and get that doesn't make sense. Especially Reformed theology is more of even though it's not everything, but some of it is just like how do you reconcile the sovereignty of God, that God is in control of all things, and the free will of man. And AG doctrine, it really emphasizes the person, their decision, their choices, and their actions. And for me, that didn't sit well because from like when I read passages in scripture talking about like the heart is more wicked than like we could possibly ever imagine, and Romans chapter 3, like no one seeks after God, and like and things like that. I'm like, how did I become saved at that point then? Even though John Calvin, the name is like taboo at Assemblies of God, like the doctrine, like I started to reconcile, like, man, how do because I knew that God was sovereign, right? I wouldn't be in the position that I was in unless God was powerful and knew everything everywhere at the same time. So how do I reconcile the sovereignty of God and the free will of man and me being saved? And by the end of my senior year, I could, like, even though I was licensed as an AG like preacher by that point, yeah, really couldn't reconcile that. And I started to veer towards more of a Calvinistic theology, even though I didn't really know it for sure. It was only when I was in seminary where I was able to articulate the understanding of salvation better in more reformed Calvinistic, John Calvin's like TULIP, right? Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints, right? I just didn't know it when I was in college. So yeah, that's how I veered into that, was able to, and when I went to seminary, or being able just taught this and being affirmed in my theology at that point, I was like, whoa, that's amazing. That, like, it's not that I was taught this now and now this I adopted it for myself. It's like, this is what I was struggling for this past couple years, and now, like, and I was just affirmed, this isn't just me. And so that was like amazing point, right? Because up until that point, I was taught a specific kind of theology. I was taught a certain type of thing. And I really had to wrestle with that. But then coming to that point, it's like, oh wait, I am on the right track, I guess. Like, there are other people who believe in the same way that I understand scripture. And so that was a really big turning point for me to go into Reformed theology of understanding our salvation, and how we Christians are saved. I think that's what the gist of Matthias's question was, about how I transitioned to Reformed theology. Presbyterianism came like a couple years after that, when I was in seminary serving at a Presbyterian church. Presbyterianism is more of like the church governance. And that was an easier transition because Assemblies of God, the way they do church government is pretty similar to Presbyterian church government. So that was an easy transition for me. But yeah, that's how I went.
Wasn't Antioch a Presbyterian church?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, it's a Presbyterian church. And actually, what led me to Westminster, the seminary I ended up going, that wasn't my first choice. My first choice was to go to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary in Boston. And I was about to matriculate. I was about to send my money to Boston. But the crazy thing about it was Pastor Jacob at that time was getting ordained as a pastor in the PCA with the Presbyterian Church of America. And so like a group of us went to that ordination service. And I believe, I'm not sure if it was a person from the denomination or a person from Westminster, but I think it's a person from Westminster. They came to Pastor Jacob's ordination service at the church and gave a charge or gave something, like he spoke. And at that moment, like when he preached, I don't know what he preached about, but at that moment I was like, man, this is the most beautiful sermon I've ever heard. Like I was like crying because I heard like that sermon. And that's kind of crazy because we've had chapel like 5 days a week, like for years. And we've had countless sermons, countless presentations, and countless all these other things. And yet it came to this ordination service and I heard the most beautiful sermon that I've ever heard. And so like, instead of matriculating to Boston, actually I was so determined to go to Boston that I actually stepped down from my position at Antioch. I was a youth pastor there, middle school youth pastor. I stepped down. And I interviewed people to take my position, and I was about to go to Boston, and I like did a whole like 180. I was like, nah, I ain't going to Boston. I'm going to Westminster, which was in Philly. And so like I'm out of position. I'm going to the school that this guy who just gave us charge to, like, yeah. So that's how I ended up going to Westminster, actually. So yeah,
That's
I don't regret it.
no, that's a really cool story. I think people are gonna appreciate hearing that. It was a great question from Matthias that led to probably more of an answer than he expected, but in a good way.
I mean, you ask a preacher to say something, like, you don't expect a short answer.
Right. No, it's good.
Yeah.
So here's another ministry question. So buckle in, everybody. He wants to know how your ministry has been affected by COVID. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll let you expand as much as you want to.
Yeah, I think it's gotten busier. It's gotten busier because there's a lot other things to do, right? I had to learn a lot of new things. I had to learn like how to stream. I had to learn all the things that went into streaming. So I appreciate you guys, especially like recording, doing the podcast. This is amazing, like sound quality check, visual check, and all that stuff. Like doing all this stuff is it's a lot of work. So you guys are doing a great job. So there's a lot of things that went behind the scenes. I had to switch up how I preached. Like I rarely did PowerPoints before. Now I have to do PowerPoints. I had to do presentations like along with my sermons to give that visual check for those who are streaming our services. I had to communicate more with the congregation, especially our next steps and what to look forward to. More emails, more communication between people, more meetings, how to handle all these things. So like for a good 3 months, I had a meeting almost every day. Like this is like apart from other meetings, right? Like just logistical meetings amongst like different committees and different groups of people. So I was meeting every day. I had to quell anxieties of people. Like I had to learn how to meet people safely and how to say no, and how to say no nicely. I had to how to do Zoom meetings, especially like how do I make Bible study more interesting with people just like peering through the screen? Like how do I keep their attention during these things? So it became busier for sure. The downside was on a personal level, I felt like this pressure because we're not meeting in person for a while when COVID-19 first happened. Yeah, I had this personal anxiety and stress that I put on myself of thinking, yeah, like I'm a type of person. If I'm the type of person that when it's out of sight, it's out of mind, like I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person. So how do I get church to not leave their sight and their mind? Like how do I continue to form a community when we're socially distancing? Like those are some of the questions that I had to think about, and also I stressed over. I got like pretty anxious about that because I'm fairly new, right? Like I came in January. I've seen these people for 2.5 months in person. Now we had COVID-19. Church members that barely know me. Like, how do I form a community? How do I form like social capital with them? How do I do all these things? Like get the ball rolling, because we can't just be sitting around until something good happens. We have to be before the ball on this. Like I felt a lot of like personal anxiety in the midst of COVID-19. But one of the good things and great things I really appreciate about my church is how communal they are already. Like, that although we are social distancing, they just love meeting together. They love each other, and that was something that I really really appreciated about this church and this community that I'm part of. Yeah, so forming events like socially distanced events, like we had a step challenge in the earlier. Dude, these people are crazy with their step challenge. Like I thought 10,000 was a lot of steps. Dude, we've had people getting 50,000, 75,000 steps in a day. And they're really committed to this. Like, it's like ridiculous how committed they are. And we did this for about a month and a half. And so it was amazing just how they rallied together. And so like, I really appreciate this church, and I'm really thankful for God who led me into this position. We've been meeting up like book clubs. We've had book clubs. We're going through Chronicles of Narnia together. We're on our 5th book now. We've had like I think Netflix has this where you could do Netflix parties. So we've been doing all this kind of stuff, and yeah, this year we're thinking about how to give back to the community. Like what volunteer opportunities are out there. So we've been thinking about that this past yesterday, just putting plans together. So that was really awesome just to go through that. One of the upside is technology is amazing. Technology's like opened up so many ministry opportunities, so many social opportunities for us to engage with one another in ways that I never thought was possible. So we've actually had new people come to church because of technology, and so that's been awesome. So yeah, I think the people really make and break the church. I think my church is very fortunate. I'm very blessed to be here. They're real people who really wants to form a community. So that's been really cool. Yeah, it's stressful, but we did.
That's a great answer. So his next question is, he wants to know if you are still practicing Taekwondo.
Nah, man. Nope.
All right, that's fair. All right, his last thing, it's not so much of a question. He just wanted to say this to you. He said, "You taught me how to use chopsticks, and I'm eternally grateful." And now this part of it, I'm going to completely butcher, so I apologize. You can correct me. I'm just going to read it how I read it. He says, "Komawoa."
Komawo. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you in Korean.
I figured. I didn't know that.
No, you're almost there, man. You're almost there. You could be Korean, man.
Korean and Brazilian. There you go.
Korean and Brazilian. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have a follow-up question so you aren't still practicing Taekwondo, but you did practice Taekwondo at Valley Forge?
Not really. We just sparred like here and there with Sam and Matt and all.
So I have a follow-up question with that on the sparring. Who is a better fighter, you or White Chocolate?
I think we got proof, bro. I think we got proof.
Bro, you didn't hit me with that. Bro, you hit me with your fist.
Yo, I remember that moment, right? I remember that moment because I used to fence, and I like my killer instinct, like out of nowhere, just like popped through. Like my like I knew that he was going to like punch, and so I responded with like a counterattack, and so that's how I hit him in the face. And then I remember he was kind of dazed. He's like, "Hey, you hit me with your fist." I'm like, I was so apologetic, but I was like, "Wait, we're boxing. Why am I apologizing? I'm supposed to hit you with my fist." I think that was like the Asian in me. It's like to be like subservient and be apologetic, but I'm like, wait, why am I apologizing?
We're fighting.
Yeah, we're were sparring. But dude, it was so funny how that blew up. I think we have pictures of that, and there was a whiteboard that we had in the hallway, and someone just drew that on the whiteboard.
So it was Harshberger.
Yeah, it was Tom.
Yeah. Because I think so like I was roommates with Chocolate and Tom and D-Chat, and then we had Matty B with us. But like I think Matthias brought it up on his podcast.
Yeah.
And I had no recollection of it. And like Chocolate and I are like best friends. We're best friends at school. Like, and I was like, you fought Josh Lee? Like, I don't know how. I must have been home that weekend or something. And then we were messaging about it. And then Tom was like, oh yeah, you don't remember that? I drew it on the whiteboard. And like, right now, the only recollection I have of it is the stories that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But I just think that's hilarious. I just don't know why he would think he could fight you either. I love him so much.
Yeah, I think it was
why he would think that.
It was a play spar. I don't think it should have gone that serious. It's just like it clicked at me for some. Yeah, it was bad. I did feel bad and sorry for him. Not because I hit him in the face, but because the aftermath. Like he did not get to live it down. Like no one like let him off the hook. Just because of what he said. Yeah. And there was pictures drawn of it, so I just felt really bad. Like, do we have?
I think Hat's digging up a picture.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Is that pictures of it actually happening?
Yeah. I forget who took pictures of that. Maybe Matthias.
Oh my gosh! Like, I can't really. We can't.
Yeah,
really
that was.
Oh, there it is.
Magic touch right there.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'll have to share these pictures at some point. Yeah, it's just it's so good. And the caption too. You hit me with your fist.
I've been bugging Chocolate to get on the podcast. Maybe this will push him over that he needs to get on here so he can give his side of the story.
Yeah, please.
And redeem himself from the ridicule that he got after that. That apparently I just don't remember. That's like nuts to me.
Yeah, I think it was in the middle of like a long weekend or something like that when people were going home or like a vacation. I forget. But not everybody was on the floor that day.
Yeah, that's so funny. So next questions we have up are from Matt Baldwin. His first question is, and this kind of ties, like I had no idea that you lived in Buongiorno your first year. So Matt's first question actually was, why did you leave after your first year? He thinks you might have traveled with a group or something.
Yeah, so after my first year, I had plans. Actually, I took a semester off from Valley Forge to travel. So I took a traveling trip around the world. I think I took, out of 7 months, I went around like 23 different countries. And so in my first year, I've always planned like to take this trip. So I saved up money. I was working. I used some of my scholarship money that I got from other associations to like put towards that traveling trip. And so I traveled for 7 months. I took a semester off from Valley Forge. And that's when I came back was the spring semester. That's when I met, I think, Hatmaker and the new guys that were on 24. And so that's my first encounter with them. Took a semester off to travel. It was awesome. I was supposed to travel with two other guys who were much older than I was. But what ended up happening was they had like problems with their own schools. And so they like ditched, they bounced, they went back to their schools. And so I just ended up traveling like 5 months by myself around the world. So that was awesome. Got to see different missionary work. And the reason why I went on this trip was first to, see the world, get to experience all that, because the opportunity, like these two guys, they planned this trip. They wanted to go around. They had their itinerary marked out and stuff like that. But second reason was like, I knew that I was going to pastoral ministry. And so I kind of wanted to see different ministry opportunities, different evangelism work that was going on. So that's what I went to go see and experience. Majority of the time I was able to see missionary and take part of that and do whatever work that they needed to get done. take part of that. And then sometimes it was just traveling, just straight up traveling. So yeah, came back spring semester, met the new guys. The awesome thing about that is I took enough credits per semester to actually graduate on time. So I technically graduated West or Valley Forge in 3.5 years.
Right. I think that's what surprised me too, was I was like, I'm pretty sure Josh was there 4 years, or I knew that you had came and left in 4 years. So then learning that you lived in Bongiorno, and B, that you left, I was like, wait, what? So
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I worked my ass off. Like sometimes there's a couple semesters where I had to actually go to like the academic dean and get like, signatures because I was taking too many credits.
Believe it or not, I actually had to do that too.
Yeah.
Cool. So his other question, or his next question, well, actually it's kind of two questions, but built into one. So what he said was, we know very little bit about Josh's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so his first question was if you were willing to ask him about his dad and what he did professionally, which you kind of already mentioned, he was a pastor.
Yep.
So then Matt's follow-up question was, how has your father's occupation, I guess being a pastor, then affected your life?
Yeah. So I grew up in a pastor's family home, Assemblies of God, all my life. It was good to see the faithfulness of my dad and the faithfulness of God throughout my life. Like for me growing up, it was tough. We grew up really poor. Sometimes I literally lived at church because we didn't have a home. We would not carve out, but like we would set up like a place within the church building just for my family to live for a number of months or whatnot, however long we needed. My mom would worry about like milk. We didn't have milk a lot of times to feed my younger sister and my brother. So yeah, but it was awesome just to see the faithfulness of God in the midst of all that. How that influenced my upbringing and my direction, career path. At first, when I felt the Lord called me to ministry, I really didn't want to go because I knew the struggle that a pastoral family went through. I did not want that for my future family. Like, I was like, no, just call me, give me anything, give me something else. That was really my initial thought, and I really held on to that for a couple of years, really. But I think when I was younger, when I first sensed that call, that internal call, like trying to reject it, it grew. Like this is how like the sovereignty of God really really was ingrained in my mind is, God, if you're going to call me to pastoral ministry, then that's it. Rather than making me humble, I grew more arrogant because I was like, God, if you're sovereign, if you're going to lead me in this way, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And so it gave me license to just do whatever. So like at church, like I would be the good Sunday Christian church boy, pastor kid, and then at school I'd be something else amongst my friends. And so I went through a huge identity crisis in middle school and high school. Still dealt with that a little bit in college. But yeah, my dad really helped me in that way where, at first I didn't want to go, but seeing his faithfulness and how God was faithful to our family helped, I guess, ease the anxiety of going to pastoral ministry. At first I hated it. It's a love and hate for me, to be honest. Love it because I see God's faithfulness, but hated it because I knew what it did to my family. And there's things that I'm taking in really well. Like he's a great pastor, but he was not the best father or the best husband. And I still resent him in some, like I'm still hurt. Like resent is a harsh word, but I still am still working on it with my dad, because his mentality as an immigrant pastor, like their mentality is church is family. Like, like it's not family and then church. Is like church is family and then family. And so he would take better care sometimes of church members than he would his own family. So seeing that growing up, I was like, man, I'm not going to ever do that with my own. But it also shows like he is a good pastor, like he's there. And so it really shapes me to be, I think, a better pastor and a better future husband and a better future father. I'm just learning from him. And to me, like there's many conversations I've had with my dad, especially where like he would break down crying, apologizing, this is the best that I could have done in this situation. And that's all he knew. Like there was no one that he learned from. And so this is his experience. And yeah, I get the privilege of learning from his mistakes and get to do the things that I'm sure he desires for me and for himself if he could have done it another way. So yeah, I appreciate my dad in that way. It's not always easy. It's always a very complex thing. But yeah, I'm learning to be more gracious because we all need grace, and to see my dad as not just a figurehead or kind of like a ideal of a person, but to see him as a person. I think that's the biggest growing and maturing thing that I've had to do, like while I was serving with him those 3 years.
Yeah.
So that was a very fortunate and blessed time for me.
Yeah, I think I don't know like when it happens or if it happens for everybody, but there is like a point where you like start to recognize like your parents are always going to be your parents, but you see them in a new light. And like I said, they're always your parents, but you see them like just as regular people too, right? And like you get that perspective. And like I'm sure, and like you mentioned, like going home, like your mom was, dealing with breast cancer, and I'm sure like that really kind of is I mean, I know that's a difficult time. I've been through something similar with family, and like it's really tough, but you see your parents in a new light, and that struggle also like kind of helps heal things, I guess. I don't know, like maybe I'm not putting the right words, but you probably can figure out what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. I think just seeing that for themselves, just being real, honest about who my parents are, but also seeing for myself, right? Like I, because I've received so much grace, like from Christ myself, like I'm not a perfect person either. The person I am is by the privilege of my parents, uh, privileges that my parents have afforded me, privileges of Christ's love for me. Like when I'm like the crappiest of persons, like the most arrogant and most like disgusting kind of person, like Christ still loved me, like, and was patient and kind towards me and gentle to lead me out of sinfulness and into righteousness, and also to really dive deep into like that I am not the best of persons, yet the one who should be ridiculing, judging, has showed me grace. And so like who am I to judge my dad or my mom in such a way um, where I would not want to be judged in that way? And so I think for me that was a growing moment in understanding the gospel for myself, so that I could, which actually really humbled me to not be so judgmental against my parents or my dad particularly, and hoping that my future children and the people around me would show me grace when I screw up too, and I'm not the best pastor or best parent or best husband. So yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're getting into some more questions here, and these ones here come from Colleen.
All right.
So her first question is, she wants to know your best memory of 24 Down and your worst memory of 24 Down.
Yeah, I was thinking about that and I was really hard. Like, there is no specific best memory. There's best moments. I think every moment was like the best, especially when we ate together, regardless of where that was. Um, like, I remember Samsung's birthday, we went to, I think, Applebee's, and we just all chilled. Like, it was everybody. Um, we rolled out deep for that. Um, when we go to the cafeteria, like, we would all like, everybody knew like this table was ours. Like, they would try to come in, but then they would easily be pushed out, like because we would all be taking spots, right? Um, we would eat like in our hallway, um, like bringing Korean food. Like, honestly, I was like, at first I was really scared. Like, dude, like, what if they don't like the smell? Like, this, I know Korean food is pungent. Like, I don't like to open kimchi like in my own apartment. Like, even now. But yeah, I was like, man, so scared. And yet, it was awesome because, yeah, we would all like, I remember just we would sit on either side of the hallway just in a straight line, just passing food down. I would make big pots of rice. Um, and that was just awesome time. We'd eat ramyun or like make ramen for each other, and it was awesome. So every time we ate and had fellowship, I thought that was the most amazing thing. Um, I think the worst memory came in when I was actually my first year. I think it was my second semester in my first year when I think there was a dress up day. And I remember like it was cool. Everybody dressed up. They're taking pictures outside. And then I think I remember just this is not any fault of anyone, but I think we're still developing the identity of 24 Down. But there was the picture and it was like all 24 Down members like take a picture. And then actually I was excluded because I was living in Buongiorno at that time. And I was like, this is BS. Um, and so I think that was like the worst memory. But I think at that point, it kind of gave me like the motivation. I'm like, this is this is BS. Like, um, I know what it feels like to be left out. And so I was like, yeah, this is not going to happen anymore. Like, once I get on 24 Down, like, this is definitely not happening. And so I think we were still like, I figuring out what our identity was. I think what that meant. Um, I think it was so new because we didn't know the reach of 24 Down at that moment too. So, um, but yeah, I think that was the worst moment, like memory that I could think of. If I'm being honest.
Maybe it wasn't that you didn't live on 24 Down. Maybe it was that you lived in Buongiorno. And that's why.
Yeah. It was just
Well,
jealousy. I'll just take it like that.
Well, it amazes me, but then again, when I think about it, it doesn't amaze me. Like how often eating together gets brought up on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like that is such a special thing to so many, if not all of us.
Yeah.
And it reaches beyond just like the cafeteria meant so much. Just
Yeah.
always eating together cafeteria, but it reaches beyond that. You know, you brought up going to Samsung's birthday. John Simmons brought up like how we would all like take multiple cars to go to Sonic. Like there's just this ongoing theme throughout this podcast of times that we would eat together. And when you think about like eating, you know, having a meal, it's such a simple thing, but it is so like personal. And when you do that with this group of people constantly, it doesn't, at first it kind of surprises me, but then I realize, and it doesn't surprise me why it means so much to so many people. And I think it's really cool to hear it brought up in so many different ways. I don't know. I love that. I really do love that.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that though, like, it's a deeply biblical thing. If you look at scripture, all these things are done by feast. If you look at the Lord's Supper, it's done by feast, right? It's done by a remembrance. The crazy part, and what do we look forward to? Like, in Psalm 23, what is the last scenario of Psalm 23, a feast before our enemies. And I think this is a deeply it's so interesting how this is not just human thing, but it's a godly biblical thing that's ingrained in all people, where we're wanting to feast with one another to some degree. And if you look at Jesus's parables, what is the best thing? Like, we're at a wedding feast, right? Like, that is where we're going to be ending up. And if you look at the Lord's Supper, Jesus says, I'm not going to take of this wine until I see you again when I come back. And I think for me, like, my deepest regret would be, or the thing that would sadden me the most, is that even though we have fellowship here on earth, like 24 Down, is to not see brothers and sisters who are part of 24 Down, who was able to gather together and feast together and not be in the heavenly feast, in the wedding feast. And that would be the saddest moment, because we know how much we love it here, right? We've all said it, we all shared it, one here and another. But what ultimately matters is not just the memories that we share here, but the memories that we will share in the life to come. And so, my prayer is that we will be able to do that once again, for all eternity. Think about that, where we'll be able to do that, man. And that's going to be good food. It's not going to be like half-cooked rice. It's not going to be like stinky food. It's going to be like the best tasting food ever.
I mean, the half-cooked rice and the stinky food is probably better than what they served most days in the cafeteria.
Yeah, that is kind of the reason why we started that.
It's I just had a client last week. I texted some of the guys. A client came and dropped off Korean food for my branch, just out of appreciation.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And half my team was like, ew, no. And I was like, that's fine, I'll eat it. It was so good. I love the idea of I mean, we filled out that table, and like you said, it was people, I don't think it was a claim, but people just knew that was the 24 Down table in the cafeteria. There you go in and go to that's where we all sat at.
Yeah.
And I love I can just picture it going in, we have a whole crew probably first thing or whatever, and if people are already in there, I guarantee nobody was get out of here, that's our table, but maybe if they were sitting at the end or the middle of it, we just filled up the rest of the table and didn't even care if they were sitting there and just sat down next to them, and probably even started talking to them, that either they got up and left, or they were oh, okay, well, I guess we'll talk to these people, and just got sucked into our group.
Yeah. I think not only that, I think we pulled up more chairs to the already filled table.
Oh, we crammed in there. Yeah,
we crammed in there so that it was just we're eating elbow to elbow, yeah, dude, I loved it. I miss it. I think it was, I think 24 Down culture really influenced the rest of campus, because I remember other dormitories trying to emulate that kind of culture. I remember 24 Up really tried to do something like that, and they succeeded. I see them on Facebook a lot, where they are still communicating with one another and lifting one another up, and so that's really awesome. Yeah.
Very cool. So Colleen's next question here is, if, and maybe you won't have one, we'll see. If you could have changed one rule at Valley Forge, what would it have been?
Man, there's a lot of rules, but I was thinking about this too. Even though I would change up the rules for chapel. Even when I was in school, I was like, man, this chapel thing sucks. The one thing that I got away with, chapel, is not the one way of not attending chapel was actually to do the media team. I don't know if you guys, the media team was actually just starting up, and so we just did the broadcasting. So I was part of that team. So I did a lot of the chapels, I didn't even attend, because I was in the back room doing the cameras and stuff like that. So that was one way I avoided some of dumb chapel stuff. But I would honestly not make it. Yeah, I would just change up the chapel, like make it better. Like, why should we suffer? Like, why should something so beautiful be such a terrible thing? Like, the irony is that they did the exact opposite of what they wanted to do. Like,
Mhm.
like chapel is supposed to be worshipful, it's supposed to be a central thing, but they made it a bane to our Valley Forge existence. And I think it hurt and became an incredible detriment to people. I think it was a huge disservice for Christians who went to Valley Forge,
Oh yeah.
which is a sad thing, right? It should be something that you look forward to. I think if they spent half of their energy of like catching scam, like uh, you know, scan and
Scan
scrammer,
and scram.
like if they put half that energy into like the quality of our chapel speakers and all that, dude, like I think it would have been much more something that would bring more revival than death, and do less of it. Like, why do we need 5 days? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't agree with you more. Like, it's such a simple thought, but like to me, and I could be wrong, but like thinking about back then now, if I had to guess, like if chapel wasn't required 5 days a week, I probably honestly, like me personally, I probably would have gone more. I probably would have scanned and scrammed a lot less. I
Yeah.
probably would have enjoyed it more. And then like you put in the factor too of on top of that, they're gonna fine you when you don't go. Like it just had this like you said, just this negative um energy about it to where it's like eventually it got to a point where it's like you said, we dreaded it.
Yeah.
And so it was counterintuitive for what they actually wanted. And
Exactly.
I think that's a great answer for something that
Yeah.
Yeah.
you would have changed.
Yeah. It sucked. Like,
It's
I
like
remember, what is this guy talking about? What are we here? Like, this is like waste. I remember so like in the back room in the media, like we had like 3 cameras, I think 3 or 4 cameras, and our goal every day is to catch like for me, like catch how many people we could like sleep, like catch sleeping. And so we would like the camera people would even angle and on sleeping people and just see how many people we could catch a day doing that. But yeah, it was pretty bad. Like if it wasn't required, like I would do that. Like make it not a requirement, like an optional thing, and make it less, maybe 3 or 2 times a week.
yeah.
And make that optional, right? Like and keep it open. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I ran a camera. So DeRozier's led the median team, and I remember that. Like we would try to catch people sleeping.
Yeah. Yep.
Totally caught a professor sleeping.
Yeah.
I definitely did. Yeah.
That was like expected, bro. Like,
Yeah, like they hated it just as much as us, but
yeah.
I think it's just like know your audience. Like we're young adults. Like if you're gonna like make something like incredibly mandatory, we're absolutely gonna hate it.
Yeah.
And I just remember that giant ass clock that they just had in the back, like right at the balcony there, and like it was like halfway through chapel, like most people just sat like this, like looking over their shoulders, like waiting for that clock to turn 12 o'clock, and it never ended at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock anyway. It always went even longer. And
can I ask you guys this? Like, how many good chapels do you remember?
That's not a good question for me to answer, because
it's a very good question, right? Like,
yeah, but my last year and a half, and I've kind of talked about this before.
Yeah, I remember.
I didn't go. I really didn't go.
Yeah, that's a sad part, right? Like, what about you, Wolfie?
I went, but I probably have the same answer that Hat has, which is like none.
Which is so sad because
it is.
It's like almost like every day we're at school, right? Like, there is no memorable thing that really stood out. I have a really sad thing. did not accomplish what they set out to do. In most businesses, you would cut that out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I could maybe if I'm struggling, name like 6 occasions where I thought, man, this was worthwhile.
Yeah.
Out of 4 years of going there, right? Like it's so
nuts.
sad.
4 years of going there 5 days a week, and you can only come like
Yeah.
maybe 6.
Yeah, 6 good ones. I'm like, it really boggles my mind.
There was one good one I remember, and I forget who was speaking. It might have been Dr. Meyer, and the sermon, I don't remember what it was. It was just entertaining. But at the end of it, they like were trying to use fire as an example. And so he took a gasoline canister, like just like the ones they sell at like the gas stations, like the plastic ones. And it obviously had water in it. And like he was trying to demonstrate something, and he started throwing it across like the the steps there onto the stage. And like probably every single person in that room understood it was just an illustration and that it was water, but there was one guy that didn't and thought it was gasoline, and it was just like he did it for like 10 seconds, and this guy's just like, no, stop it. It like started screaming at Dr. Meyer, like
Yeah.
like people had to like calm him down and be like, it's just water, it's not real. So I do remember that, but probably didn't do much for my spirituality or faith or anything.
Well, honestly, like, and we'll continue on with the questions here in a little bit. I'll let you guys say whatever last things you want to say about chapel. But the one last thing I will say, and I'm only going to say this because I want to give some positive outlook of chapel coming from me, because I don't have much of that anyway. But there was, for me, and I just thought of it, there was one chapel that I do really recall. And I don't know if you guys will remember this or not, but there was a speaker that came. His name is Reggie Dabbs. And so like that one meant a lot to me because he's from Michigan, and Reggie and I had a personal relationship years and years and years and years prior to me even being at Valley, like from when I was a little kid. Like him and I had a relationship together. So like I remember that meant a lot to me because like he had become a very prominent speaker and whatever, and now he's coming to the college that I'm going to, and I was able to go up and hang out with him and talk to him, and like he knew who I was and that kind of thing. So like for me, that was probably the one that I can think of off the top of my head.
No, that was a good one. I remember that one. He like it was like a train illustration. He had played a video in the background while he spoke, and it matched up perfectly. I think I remember that chapel for sure. Yeah,
he's a good speaker.
Yeah.
All right, so Colleen's last question, and it's the question she asks everybody, is, Josh Lee, when are you getting the 24 down tattoo?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm still thinking about my first tattoo. I don't even know what that would be. Yeah.
Maybe 24 down.
I think that would probably be like a tight second.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really tough when you're working on a clean slate. Like you want to make that first impression, right? Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about this for years. I even thought about like a tattoo while I was in college, but like, I just didn't figure out what I would like.
If you want, I can take like a really, really good selfie if you want to get like a portrait of me for any reason. Just let me know.
When are you going to get your first tattoo?
I kind of have a thing against tattoos. So.
Yeah. I remember like one time you just show up with like a huge chest tattoo. I'm like, what the F? Like, dude, what happened to like this poor college mentality? Like, it's like, no wonder he's poor. They're spending money on tattoos. Yeah.
Oh, man. That's too funny. So next question is, it's actually my question, but it's the one I've been asking on. I don't know when I forget who was the first I asked, but I've been asking on everyone, and I think it's a pretty fun, good question. So the question is essentially, if you were going to have a building or location at Valley Forge named after you, other than 24 down, 24, what building or location would you choose and why?
I'd use a field right in front of the 24 down. Yeah. I think there's a lot of
Nice.
memories, a lot of activities that we've done, a lot of memories shared on that field.
What
Yeah.
what a smart answer too,
Yeah.
because like you followed the rule of like you can't pick 24, but you picked like the closest thing related to, like, very smart answer.
Yeah,
That's good.
I thought about this
So-
all day today, actually.
I like
Actually,
it.
I thought about this like a couple weeks ago when I was listening to one of the podcasts.
Yeah.
I was like, these poor schmucks. I got a better answer.
I can't wait to answer this one.
I was waiting for it.
That's good. I think usually people have to like really think about it, which is surprising because I like think I have asked it. Maybe Hat was the first episode I asked it on. I don't.
No, I think you
remember for
asked that
sure.
before. I think it was like earlier on, maybe the first
Okay.
5 or something like that.
I don't know.
I think.
So I do want to get. So I did not answer this question, but I'll give my answer now since you answered yours so quickly, and maybe I could. So I would pick the boiler room.
The boiler room.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because I spent a lot of time up behind that that I
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, what were you
And
doing?
I don't think anybody. Yeah, I was just hanging out with other people sometimes, praying. Yeah. Listen,
Yeah.
nobody else wants that building named after him, so that's yeah.
I had a very memorable moment at the dumpster outside of the boiler room.
Mm.
I share that on my podcast. That was the where
theater?
no, it's when well, actually Wolfie was there for part of it. No, that was a different night. One of the nights that I got really drunk at Valley Forge, and I threw up all over Mike and Francis's bed, and then threw the mattress out. It was the dumpster right next to the bed.
Gotcha. I remember.
I don't think I was there for that, but
No, I was mixing that up with the Philly night. They all, it happens.
Yeah, when you're drunk, it's all one night.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
You got any other ones, Wolfie, from you?
That was it, man.
All
I
right,
peppered some other ones out throughout, but that was
Yeah.
my main one.
Yeah, that's good. Next set of questions here comes from Andrew Kindler, one of your fellow RAs.
Yeah.
His first is, what made you want to be an RA for 24 Down?
I'm the type of guy where, like, if no one is going to step up, I'll step up to the plate, kind of guy. I'd rather be like the second person or the third person, like to support in the background. But at that year, I think there was a couple people who wanted to be RA, and I realized, like, the people who were trying to step up to the RA was going to shift and change the culture of 24 Down. And so at that moment, I was like, all right, I'll just throw my name to the bid, because I really love 24 Down and what our culture was like. And and that goes with people, right? Like, I thought of a couple individuals who, they would not jive so well with these new RAs. And so I think for me, it was just like to maintain the culture of 24 Down, and to deepen it and to make it better, to a certain degree. So that's why I became RA. Yeah.
So Andrew's next question, and this one's a fun one. He says, do you remember the night that we came into your room dressed like Spartans?
Yes.
We were in our underwear, using things as swords and carrying pillows as shields. We woke you up. You looked at us and said 2 words to us: get out. Your look said you wanted to kill us. Did you want to?
Probably. I'm bad at waking up, and so, like, I love my sleep. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have done anything, but I think I laid back in bed and I was just like laughing. Yeah.
That it had to have been shortly after we went and saw 300, I would think, because I do kind of recall, like, when we saw that, we were all like, yeah, and we did just stupid stuff like that. Like, even though Andrew didn't go, I know he was involved in the, like, hey, let's run around like we're the guys from 300.
Yeah. No, I remember that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was super funny.
So Andrew's last question here, and this is one of the ones he's been asking a lot of people, is, what was your go-to at Wawa?
What was my go-to? I don't remember Wawa all too much in college. I don't know. I'm not sure because it changed over time, right? Like, um, yeah, I don't remember. I just remember Thanksgiving, like the gobblers. Those are those are pretty good.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah, I don't.
if you can't remember a go-to, at least you have a most memorable
Yeah,
Wawa.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's a fair answer.
yeah.
What's a
But I
gobbler?
miss Wawa. I'm not gonna lie. Being in Maryland, I just miss Wawa. I'm pretty sure you do too.
Dude, you have no idea. Somebody sent I think in one of the group chats or Facebook or something like that, somebody sent this map and it was like, I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was
Oh, I
like,
sent that.
yeah, it was like places that what was it, like places
It
that
was like it was a play on like the Electoral College, but it
Mhm.
was like places that have Wawa and places that don't. And it
Yeah,
was just like part of Pennsylvania, Jersey, and then like
Florida.
Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
yeah.
is like really
What
weird.
happened?
So I took this picture that he posted and because it was like where Wawas were red. And I
Yeah,
made the entire state of Michigan red. And I was like, this is my dream right here.
yeah, 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 man. Well, I miss it.
Dude, I miss it so much. When so the first time I went to Pennsylvania with my wife,
Yeah,
I told her, I was like, listen, when we get close enough to a Wawa, like we're
yeah,
stopping at a Wawa right away. And
yeah,
I tried to give her as much heads up as I could about like how much I was gonna have Wawa that weekend. And we stopped at the Wawa like within the first, like, I don't know, less than an hour of being in the area. And I went in, got my usual, which was the buffalo chicken sandwich or whatever. To
yeah, yeah.
get out, and I like take one bite in it, and she was like, "I've never seen you look at something with so much love in my life."
Yo, she probably felt so jealous, man. No, but I have a similar story. So when I moved to Tennessee, when I moved to Tennessee, I didn't. I said goodbye to Pennsylvania. I thought I was never coming back to this area. Um, and so like I was there. I was in Tennessee for about a year, and after a year, I was like, man, I really miss my friends. Like I really miss like the East Coast. Being in Tennessee was like really tough. Like the first thing that like when I first moved to Tennessee, I was like, the first 5 days, I'm like, man, something feels off. Something feels really weird. And I looked around, it's all white people. There's no diversity. Um, like I maybe out of like 10 people, like 7 people were white. Like it was like crazy. Like no offense to like white people. It's just like it was just homogenous to like white people. And seeing the lack of diversity was kind of crazy. So I'm like really felt like homesick. Like I wanted to go back. And so I was driving back to Philly and driving back just for like a week or so. And I'm crossing the bridge going into Philly, and I saw the stadium, and like literally like my arms, like I had like goosebumps driving across the bridge because I missed it so much. And then the first chance I got to in Pennsylvania, the first Wawa I saw I went in, and yeah, I was so super excited that I actually took a selfie at a Wawa and sent it to my family and friends, and like, yeah, I feel you, man.
Yeah, you people that live in Pennsylvania near a Wawa, you don't know what you have. You
Yeah,
literally don't realize what you have.
yeah, it's a
Listen,
blessing, man. Go to Wawa for us right now.
I live in Pennsylvania and I don't live near a Wawa, so that sucks.
Yeah, that
I think
sucks.
the closest one's like an hour away.
Yo, that's the worst. You're so
Yeah,
close and yet
yeah,
so
that's what I
far.
was saying to Hat. I was like, oh my gosh, like if it was like
No lie,
half an hour closer, like I would like, yeah.
if I had a Wawa that was an hour away, I would still go at least once a week, and that's not a lie.
Wow. And you could go
Wish I
anytime.
could
It's
go.
24 hour.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Just sneak out in the middle of the night. Wife be like, where have you been?
Yeah.
I've got an addiction.
We would have to give it an intervention.
Man. I mean, we're not doing it right now, but at work, like we have like a training facility that's like there's a Wawa right near it. And so like probably like once a month or every other month I had to go there. And like, even though like I knew like I'd be coming home in like an hour and I have dinner on the table, I'd still get like a sub from Wawa.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna isolate
That's
this
good,
last 5 to 7 minutes of this podcast and send it to Wawa and see if we can't get sponsored by Wawa.
Do it. Do it.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So our next set of questions come from Tim. So
yeah.
Tim's first question for you was, do you think we made a dynamic duo as RA and ARA our last year at VFCC, and why?
Man, it was fun with Tim, but it was one of the hardest things too, because Tim as an ARA is supposed to help the RA, but he ended up making more of a trouble. He was part of pranks that he wasn't supposed to be part of. He was making sometimes causing more trouble than the troublemakers, and so it was like really tough. There's one moment where I was in Princeton Theological Seminary, going through the interview process, going through all these things, and I get a phone call in the at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm about to like give an interview the next day, right? Like go through this whole process. And this whole situation blows up at 24 Down, was stacking up with chairs in front of a guy's room, and like people like threatening to call like the cops, and Tim is just sitting there just like chilling with you guys. I'm like, what the F is going on, Tim? Like, you're supposed to be stepping up at this moment.
So that's really funny. Tim's second question was, how mad were you when you got woken up at 2 a.m. by a phone call from the former RD because Phil Sabella called the cops on Hat?
Dude, I was so pissed. I was so pissed, but kind of like, yeah, I was so angry.
Talk us through this. We need to. Yeah, I don't know if we've really dove into all the pieces of this story.
Before you go into it, because you kind of stopped yourself real quick. I think what you were gonna say was you were pissed, and admit it, you were kind of proud too.
I was gonna say proud, but it was funny. I thought it was kind of funny. But the thing is, like, my position was kind of tough, right? Because I'm at a distance. I'm in Jersey at this point. I'm definitely not going to drive back to Philly, to Valley Forge. And yeah, I had to play both sides, right? Being an RA was kind of difficult because even though I thought it was funny, I also had to be thinking about responsibly, like what this looks like for Phil and for everybody involved. And so for me, like, you guys don't know this, but I had to call Phil and actually talk him down from calling the police and all that other stuff, and really just try to counsel him through this whole situation. And for him to just relax in the midst of this, because he was really fired up about this. He really took it personally. Like, it really hurt him on a personal level. So I had to really talk with him about that. But on your side, like when I talk with you guys, I couldn't drop a hammer because that is not going to help the situation because I'm not there. And there's potential for you guys to do other things while I'm not there. And so like for me, like I had to really balance that out too, right? Like how do I play my cards well, and have you guys not be so riled up against Phil because of how he's responding, because I think you guys were kind of riled up at that point too, right? Like, so how do I settle your guys' thing? And then on the other point, it's like, I'm like so pissed at Tim because he's not helping out the situation, but actually making it worse by actually just siding with you guys and being part of the situation, not helping the situation. And so like, there's other expectations I had with Tim on this one. I think I was more pissed at Tim than I was pissed at you guys. With this whole situation, I'm like, dude, I'm so done. I'm going to fail this interview this next day.
Man.
But yeah.
I love like hearing all the different pieces that you as an RA had to like think about and keep in mind. And
Yeah.
Look, Carlos, we give a lot of kudos, but Josh, like you were a very good RA too. You were a solid RA, man. I think a lot of guys like looked up for you for that. Now Tim is an ARA. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even think I knew that Tim was an ARA. Like I was probably like I didn't even know we had one when Josh was RA.
No, like he really didn't have to do much. He really didn't have to do much. I mean, he's a great guy. Like I really enjoyed him. Like I got to actually see him like post Valley Forge, and that was really cool when he was like a manager at oh shoot, Shake Shack.
Yep.
He really hooked me up. But yeah, it was really cool just bumping into him, just seeing what he was doing at that time. Yeah, I really valued our relationship for sure, but it was definitely a growing experience. Yeah.
Hat, do you have anything you wanted to say about the Phil Sabella trash can
So
situation?
I saw this question earlier, and I brought it up in this one chat that we're in. That like I recall Phil calling the cops, but I don't recall that he was calling them specifically on me. Like that part I don't recall.
Yeah.
And Baldwin confirmed it. He said no, it was. I don't recall that it was I was like the main perpetrator of this.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just you. I think it was just I don't know details all too much, but it was just like your group what happened. Like the cops were like, yeah, we can't do anything about it, but like, but yeah, like I really had to like settle them down, like because like I didn't. First of all, like I didn't want you guys to get in trouble at all. Like that was my like even though like an RA is supposed to be on the school side, like how to regulate the school rules and all that. Like I took that role and just flipped it. I was like, how can I be the best advocate for 2-4 down for the school? And so that was, I think that's the position I played as an RA, which I think that year or the time that I was RA is what 2-4 down needed, because of the individual like situations, people situation, their scenarios and whatnot. So yeah, I really had to try to balance that out for people. Yeah.
Good. Tim's last question is then just so what was your favorite Tim moment?
There's a lot. I think one of the most memorable for me was when he invited like I did not go home very often. I think because of work, I was involved at church. I was stuck at school a lot. And I think there's one time where he invited me over to his house that for like for a holiday, and I really appreciated him. Like he was very hospitable. He was very a good host. Like for Tim, like he goes 100. Like there is no middle ground with him. Like he is like very generous with his things. Even though he's very particular about his things, he's very generous with his things. And I really appreciated his hospitality, him inviting me over to his house, letting me stay, and being like an awesome host. Yeah, I wasn't like the most uncomfortable I was how generous he was. You know, like when someone is giving too much, like you're thinking like, whoa, you need to chill. I'll say no to you because you need that. That's the kind of guy that Tim is, and so I really appreciated him when he did that. Yeah.
Very cool. So we got one last set of questions here, and then after that, I'll kind of say some stuff. I'll let Wolfie say some stuff, and then we'll kind of give you the floor. But
Cool.
so this last set of questions here comes from Francis, and I love this first question because I know I know the answer, but I want to hear the answer from you. And he says, how do you feel the Korean culture was appreciated on 24 Down?
Dude, I appreciated 2-4 down because not only were we diverse in like people, but one of people loved like accepted Samsung, Sam Lee, and I on the floor, and so I really appreciated that. Like, yeah, coming with food, like food is like the gateway, right, into kind of culture. And so when you guys accepted that and really enjoyed it, man, it really spoke volumes about what our floor was about. Um, and you guys included, like the whole floor included us. It's not that we were a separate entity, but yeah, it was really like I really appreciated you all for that. Um, yeah, it was interesting because sometimes I would forget how inclusive you guys were, because there's moments at Valley Forge where I'm like shocked because like I would get questions like really like microaggression like racist like things like, yo, how do you speak English so well? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm American. Like, I speak better English than you. Like, um, and so it's just like really interesting because like outside of 2-4 down, like I would get that question at Valley Forge, because there are some people who were not who were not exposed to other ethnicities and other cultures, and so that was very interesting, because I would forget that when I was at 24 down, and so I really appreciated you all, and hopefully you guys benefited from us and we benefited from you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, um, I, and just to kind of piggyback on top of that, like this has been talked about on the podcast a lot, but the different, all the different cultures and the diversity and everything within 24 down, was so vast, but so appreciated. And,
Mhm.
and the, to me, like the Korean culture really sticks out to me. Like we just went all in on it,
Yeah.
and it was easy for us to do. Like, I know me personally, like I wasn't as involved with the Antioch stuff as some
Yeah.
other people were, but like I would go here
Mhm.
and there. I would go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the Bible studies
Author,
occasionally.
obviously, yeah,
Yeah, Bible studies occasionally. I would go to the church on Sundays occasionally. I
yeah.
mean, I played with the soccer team. I actually just found my jersey the other day. Like,
Nice.
um, but like it was really cool. Like, and for me, like me growing up, I grew up in a very white area. You know, I
Mhm.
had culture in different places, but like my main, you know, it was mainly like my growing up was just a very white culture. And
Yeah,
so I really appreciated being able to learn these different cultures and be able to learn these things. And so as much as like you guys appreciated how much we adapted to you, like I appreciated you guys teaching your cultures to us because you were so open and you were so honest and you were so willing to explain things and take
yeah,
the time. And yeah, we cared to learn, but you cared to take the time to teach us those things. So um
Mhm.
and it just it goes, I mean, with the whole 24 down, like the Brazilian twins, like I learned so much about Brazil just because
yeah,
like they were my two best friends during my Valley Forge, like, and I
yeah,
love that. Like that's experiences that like I didn't have prior and I wouldn't trade for anything else in the world.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wish like that, like, damn, like if the world could just be like 24 down. But like when it came to like culture and ethnicity and like the things that made us different, like we had this weird balance that like I think, and I wish like I could just say like this is how it works and like this is what makes it great. But like we didn't give a shit. Like it didn't matter where you came from. Like it didn't matter the color of your skin, like your background, like, you know, if you're rich, poor, like anything, like you were accepted. But then we also did give a shit, and that like we were like, hey, like if you want to do that, like we want to embrace that too. And like, and
Yeah,
so like it was this weird balance of like, you know, people are like, oh well, I don't see color. Like, well, we did, but
yeah,
like it didn't matter. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's a kind of weird way to think about it, but I think
yeah,
that's what made it so cool.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were unashamedly Korean American. Like Sam Song would he bust out his music, right? Like he was unashamedly Korean, and you guys were unashamedly American, whatever. and it's interesting that we were unashamedly our own cultures, and yet we were unified in our diversity. And it was like that's a really hard thing. Even now, like churches are, even me thinking, like I work at a Korean American church, and just dealing with, or dealing and addressing the issue of like, what does diversity look like? um, what does that look like for us as a society, as a community? Like these are some hard questions that we all have to ask ourselves, right? And address, and what does that look like moving forward? Yeah. Yeah, I'm still wrestling with that question. What does that look like for us? Do I become more white? Do I shy away from my Koreanness? Like, or should I be more Korean? Like those are some of the things that I'm really wrestling with, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good. I think I don't know. Like I said, I love the embracing of everybody coming as who they are, within 24 Down. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So as a twin, Francis has got another question here for you.
Yeah.
This is: do you ever wish that you were a twin?
Nah, man, I can only handle myself, and I don't even like it. I can't imagine having another guy like me. I think that's the blessing of the twins, right? Like, they're cool guys, and I don't mind having two of them. Francis and Yugi, and Mikey and Junior. Yeah, they're awesome guys. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll let you kind of. We didn't really bring up your brother much, and
Yeah.
I know it's not a twin,
Yeah.
but like, you guys couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
But at the core, more of the same.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, like that was your twin, that wasn't really your twin. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear like your take on that whole thing.
Yeah. Honestly, I have just started to enjoy my brother. Like this past like maybe 3 or 4 years. Like before, like there was a certain kind of immaturity that he had, certain kind of worldview that he was really working through, and some of the things, like issues that he had to work through. And so it was just recently, um, as he's matured and he's opened up as a person, like I've enjoyed him as a person. Like I've always loved him as my brother, but like, yeah, to start enjoying him, just to really like look forward to meeting up and talking with him, just became more recent. Our family's close. Like my family is close. But yeah, um, yeah, my brother, like he's a really good guy at heart, but he's made some really dumb, stupid mistakes. Um, and so it was really hard to address certain things. Um, One of the interesting thing about my family is that my sister and I went to a boarding school during high school. So from ninth grade to 12th grade, I was away from home, like 5.5 hours away. So like when you guys probably like left home in college, but I've already done that 4 years prior. Like I've had my like away from home experience and was well adapted of living outside of home. So that meant my brother was at home by himself all throughout, to high school age, at home by himself. So he was like practically like an only child at home while my sister and I were at um, at a boarding school. And I came to Valley Forge right after high school, right? So like that's 8 years of being away from home already. Um, and so when he moved to Philly and got in trouble at school, he lived with me for a time, and I had to learn how to be an older brother. Like there was points in time where I was acting like a parent, and when you act out of your like kind of like your office, like when a brother is acting like a parent, it puts a kind of stress on a relationship that shouldn't be there. He and I felt that, And so like I had to really learn how to love him as a brother and really love him as an individual. Like I had this is like the biggest lesson I've learned from my brother, just living with him, is that I had to learn how to love him the way he needs to be loved, rather than loving him the way I think he needs to be loved. Right? I think there's a huge difference. And so that was like the biggest lesson I've learned from him, and I'm still learning, being patient and gentle in that way, being wise. But yeah, he was very different. He was still trying. He had a chip on his shoulder for sure, and yeah, I think at the core of it, we still have our core family values. We still have core like cultural values too. But he just went off the rails at a point. Um, but he's doing well. He's married. He got married last year, Thanksgiving. I actually preached at his wedding, which was awesome. Um, that was really cool. So
What in his wife's name's Kristen, right?
Kristen, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love. I mean, I love your brother. I do. I love your brother, and I didn't know him for that long because he came around like the tail end of my Valley Forge time. But man, like,
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't necessarily the best influence on him either. But like I love your brother, and yeah, I mean, I love you also, and so I think for the twin question, like, yeah, you don't have a twin. You said you wouldn't want a twin, and like I said, like you guys kind of in a way are like twins, but not. And I don't know. I love you both. So
Not gonna lie, he is cooler than me. He is more extroverted. So like he's more. So I think my experience with you guys was actually quite different. Being an RA, there was a distance that I had. Like the role that I had to play was very different. Like I could not be friends with you to a certain degree, like that I wanted to, because if I knew more than I needed to, that would have caused you guys trouble and me. Like you put me in a position where I would have to step in ways where I did not think it would be helpful for you guys in the long run. And so like I had to keep at a distance to some degree, but still be able to step into life with you guys and be close enough to you guys to have a rapport with you, because I really do and love 24 down. But the position that I had to play during those times was I had to keep at a certain kind of distance, um, yeah, for just to be the effective person I needed to be at the time.
yeah, no, I mean it makes complete sense for sure. All right, so the last question of the question segment from Francis. And this is interesting because I do want to bring up a quick story with it. I think I'll let you answer first. Is how many holes in the walls of 24 Down were you responsible for?
I don't know, man. I think there's a handful. Like there's a handful, I think for sure. I remember one big one. I think I kicked a soccer ball and like just smashed like 3 feet. I think we had to replace a 3 feet like hole.
I remember that for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember the other ones.
Okay, so there was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it might spark a memory. There was a time I'm like 99% sure it was you and I don't remember what we were doing. Like it wasn't like a serious thing, but you like for some reason you like grabbed my head and like you put my head through a wall, but like it wasn't. You didn't intend to. Like we were messing around or something. You grabbed my head and put it through the wall, and like. That is probably, if not one of my most memorable hole in the wall moments is like you grabbing me and like putting my head through this wall. And I can, to this day, I can still like see the look on your face of like, yeah, like we're joking, we're doing whatever we were doing. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
You put my head through the wall and just your face, just your jaw dropped, eyes got wide. You're just like, did I just do that? And like, I don't know if you remember that or not, but like
I think I faintly remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely shocked for sure. By the way, I think there's a lot of holes that you guys put when I was RA that I did not find you guys.
For sure.
I think like 99% I did not write you guys up.
No.
I just put it in a work order.
I don't know how this hole got here.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know how it got here. I was at work or whatever. And that's how we got all our walls fixed. Yeah.
It's funny that Francis asked that question though, because like I do recall like we would specifically give you a hard time about the holes in the wall because not intentionally, but like I think out of any RA we ever had, you did put the most holes in the wall, and most of them were accidental.
Yeah,
but it was just a like ongoing joke of like, oh my God, he put another hole in the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember we did some stupid stuff in that hall. I just remember like throwing my arm out playing dodgeball. Remember with the small soft balls, like this light balls, like we're like try to peg each other, but like they're so light that you can't really throw them very well. I just remember like Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons just doing that. Yeah. Yep.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the last of the questions. I guess real quick, was there any other stories, any other thoughts or anything you wanted to share before we wrap up? But
yeah, I think the most disturbing moment in my 24 down history is actually I'm in my room. I'm in someone else's room. I think I'm in Samsung's room at this point, and the door was shut. And I remember someone knocking on the door, and so I open the door. I'm like, I look, I you know how you open the door, you're supposed to be eye level. I'm like, what the heck? I don't see anybody there. And then I look down, and I'm like, what am I looking at? And it's Hatmaker spread eagle upside down on the door, and I'm thinking, what is this? And he's naked.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I've never seen this view before. Most disturbing moment in 2-4 down experience.
Well, I take that with a badge of pride there that I've got the most disturbing moment for you.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, yeah, that was wild, for sure. Yeah.
It was a very interesting time in our life. Yeah. So, all right. So real quick, I'm just gonna do, our plugs that we do each episode. And then after that, Hat, I'll let you kind of, share some final thoughts. I'll share some final thoughts. And then Josh, will let you close it out however you want to do it. But yeah, that's what we'll do. So, so real quick, the plugs we got. So you can follow us on Twitter. 24 Down Podcast. Usually that's just we're putting out there, when new episodes are up. So you can also email us at 24downpodcast@gmail.com, which I think nobody ever does. But if you want to, please do, because it would probably be very interesting to just actually have an email in there. You can also you can look us up on YouTube. That's where we post the episodes. As well as on some of the streaming platforms that you can listen to. We've got our Facebook pages, so 24 Down Podcast. We also have the 24 Down group. So now the podcast is open. Anybody can follow that. The group is private. Not that we're trying to exclude anybody, but it's just that, we just don't want Joe Schmo from, California or somewhere just joining our group and, I don't know, trying to get us to join his multi-level marketing scheme or something. I don't know. So, but yeah, if you're not in that group and you want to be, just connect. I mean, just ask someone. You can ask me. I'll invite you in. We'll get you in there. So, and then the last thing is storefrontier.com/24down. That is where you can find some pretty great logo, 24 down stuff. I actually just got mine. I'll put it up here on the camera. So I got my Wilson t-shirt from their episode just this last week that I'm pretty excited about. There's even some regular just 24 down hoodies. pretty awesome stuff on there. I highly encourage you guys to do that. I think it's kind of interesting that we're out of college and most people get their logo when they're in college, but we're still doing it now because that's how cool we are. So so with that, there's our plugs, Josh, or Hat. Wow. Hat, anything you want to say to Josh here at the end?
Yeah, I wanna take just a minute here and go over a few things. So first and foremost, we had we had Carlos on a few episodes ago, and I made it a point to apologize to Carlos publicly for all the stuff that I put him through. Um, I want to do the same to you, Josh. Like there was, I, I, I can't think. To be honest, like I don't know specifics. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I know I probably put you in some tough spots, being in a position of RA, and it was not my intention. But regardless, I need to own up for that. So first and foremost, I want to apologize for any tough spots I put you in. Um, and I just that was the first thing. Secondly, um, and I won't make this too long. Early on in the podcast, I don't remember what it was, but Wolfie had said something, and your response was, "Well, you're giving me too much credit," and it just it struck a chord in my mind. And you are a very humble person, and you don't like to take the credit that you deserve all the time. Um, so as the podcast was going, I just started writing a little list of um, just words that to me describe you. And so I wanted to share this list with you. I know you said don't you're giving me too much credit, but I think that's completely wrong because I think you deserve so much credit for so many things. And so I just want to share this list of words that came to my mind as we were recording this podcast. And these are all words that describe you in no particular order, just the order that I thought of them. Brilliance, loyalty, kindness, genuine. I started to write likable and then I crossed it out and I put lovable. So lovable, fierce, leader, world changer, determined, role model, focused. And that's just a small list. Like Josh, like your list of attributes is so vast and so wide. Um, and positive attributes and you don't I know you don't like taking credit all the time. You're a very humble guy, but sometimes you need to just soak that in because all those things are true and that was I was just touching just the tip of the iceberg there. So um I really appreciate you coming on this episode. I think you gave more Bible verses than anybody else did in the history of the 24 Down podcast, and I like that. So I want to say thank you again so much for coming on here. Um, you're an awesome person, awesome friend, and I respect you so much. With that, I'll let Wolfie kind of give his final words, and then it'll be your turn.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, I kind of have to echo Hat's comments. First and foremost, I'm sorry for anything. So I think it's funny. So I think you handled being RA so well of 24 Down. And I think you were the RA at the right time too for 24 Down. Like that year, like we needed you as an RA. I think it's also kind of interesting that maybe like right now, like the two people that are hosting this podcast with you are probably two of the people that were like the least ideal students on 24 Down for that year. I mean, we were pretty rough, and obviously you know that. And yeah, we've gotten a little bit better, but we've matured, maybe we'll say that, right? But no, I mean, I'll say this: if you are pastoring it all now, like you were when you were on 24 Down, like then I know like you're an incredible pastor. we call you RA, but you really were like a pastor for 24 Down, right? You weren't there, and you just talked about it. Like you handled situations so well of, like the whole Phil thing and the like the trash can, like you could have like gotten pissed at this person and handled it on that side, pissed at this person, handled it just on that side, but just full on balance of understanding people and relationships and motives. And like, that's what makes a great pastor. You're going to make a great father. Like, I know, like, and like we talked about, like, we'll be keeping that in prayer, but like that right woman's going to come along and like you're going to have an amazing family. You've learned from your family growing up. um, I was very much looking forward to this episode just because of, I feel like you really were like a pastor to me my senior year of school, and touched on a little bit, like you gave me like advice, but there was countless other times that I remember just probably doing something stupid, and therefore like we sat down and talked, but like really getting value of that. That really helped me make some formative decisions during that time. And so I'm really glad you're doing well, uh, despite all the craziness that's going on right now. It sounds like you're doing good. You're really growing as a person, as a pastor, as just all around. And so um, so glad that you got on the podcast. I agree with that. You are an incredibly humble guy. And so, you saying like, I don't really know what I'll have to share. And here it's probably been almost 2.5 hours since we started. So it's pretty awesome. So just love you, man. Really appreciate you. And with that, I'm just gonna, floor is yours.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm really humbled by you guys, for sure. Yeah, how can I follow up what after you guys said all that? Um, yeah, I think I remember one of our conversations had where you just try to apologize or even say all the bad things that you've done. Honestly, like as an RA, like there's a lot of things that we know. Um, we just don't show it all too much. And I think when I was on RA, I knew kind of the things that you were wrestling with, especially with school and all that stuff. And so I think from my position was I could either be the RA that the school wanted me to be, and to write you up for all these things, or I could be the RA that you needed to be, me to be. And I think the reason why I did that is I think the most loving thing to have done. I've been wrestling with this because there is parts of me. It's like, man, I should have been more strict. Like Andrew was, I think, even though Andrew was like really friendly with you guys, he did stick to like a lot of the rules that a good RA should be, and he was a great RA. Um, and there's moments where like, man, should I have said or stepped into these scenarios or whatnot? But the reason why I think I had to remain my distance, even though I wanted to be closer to you guys, is because I knew that if I had to step in, um, it would take away this community from you. There's a lot of things there's some things I did know that was going on, but I knew that you and others needed 24 Down as a community. And to take that away from you at that moment would have been a huge disservice to you and to others. Um, and what you needed was a community that really understood grace. And I think that's what 24 Down was. It was a really good example of what it meant to be Christ-like to one another, showing grace. There's moments I remember. There's like a Bible study that we had, and Sam Lee had one of his episodes. This is one of the few times that you actually came to one of the floor Bible studies had. And I think it was a really good turning point because I was out, like, even though I was leading the Bible study, I was almost like helpless. It was Mikey who stepped in. I don't know if you remember that. And he really took control and really prayed for Sam Lee at that moment. And he came out of whatever he was having. And it was a moment where, like, yeah, this was a really good thing for our floor. where we showed what grace and brotherhood and what fellowship of believers are like. And my hope is that although it takes great lengths, it takes a lot of effort. And this is not for you, this is for everybody too, is that it takes great effort to maintain a community like this, right? You hosting this podcast, you guys hosting this podcast, you guys reaching out to people, getting them involved. Like I was like kind of slightly resistant to coming on to podcasts because I'm like, man, what do I have to add to this conversation that you've like the previous people did an amazing job at? Like, what can I add? I was kind of resistant to it because like, man, who am I to come onto the podcast? It takes your great effort to reach out. That is kind of what church is. It's a church. A church is a community where you're wrestling with, even though you may not enjoy it all the time, but it is something that you continue to wrestle with, strive for, and build community. And although 24 Down, this podcast is great, it is not church, right? There is a necessary where people, fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, need to meet together. And my hope is that you will find, my prayer for you guys, for those who aren't going to church right now, is to find a community that will accept, show grace, be kind, be loving, and also be good for one another to build us up into the Christ-likeness, into the manner of who God has created us in the person of Jesus. And so, yeah, that's my prayer for you guys. And I hope you'll be able to find a community like that, that you will have 24 Down as a community, but you also have a church like 24 Down in many ways, but even better. And that's my hope. If you want to grow in the Lord, growing in a community like this is the best possible thing to do. One of the things I do regret at being at Valley Forge is not speaking up more to the volatile culture that it produced. My thing was to be an advocate for 24 Down, even though it might have broken some of the Valley Forge rules. I regret not speaking up against the culture that it produced. And I think I took it as like the easy way out, like the passive aggressive, like I'm gonna stick it to you guys like in this way, to the school. I think the best thing to do, thinking about it now, if I had to redo it over, I would have spoken up more against some of the volatile cultural things that the school produced. And that's the same way for you all. I think we all have this kind of like cynicism and this rebellion against the institution. The only way the institution gets better is when we speak out against it, to be more vocal, to call out hypocrites for being hypocrites, to call out people who are sinning, who are people in authority and spiritual leadership, to see, even though we may feel victims from the institution many times, it is, even though it might not be the best thing or countercultural, is that the victims need to speak up against its aggressors. I'm thinking about Galatians, where Paul actually tells Peter, the Apostle Peter, who is being racist, about being a Judaizer, right, a circumcision party. Paul calls Peter out and saying, even though Paul was being persecuted, right, from the Judaizers and telling them that you are not a preacher of the gospel, Paul calls Peter out in front of the church and says, hey, you are not walking in line with the gospel. And a lot of churches need that accountability. Pastors need that accountability, calling them out. You are not being gracious. You are not walking in line of the gospel. And I think it's people like you, me, 24 Down, who will make a culture like that in their own congregations. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys a lot. Love you guys. Josh, who knew, like, I knew all along that you were always the leader amongst guys. but you've done this now. You demonstrated this with 24 Down podcast and everything. You've like, even though I'm RA, like you did much better things than I did. And man, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you, Wolfie. Man, I appreciate you bothering me. Yeah, I'm like, man, like if I like in my head, I was like, man, if I answer in a certain way, I'm going to end up being on this podcast. And that's what happened. And man, I really appreciate you being persistent, and also being very, very encouraging. Dude, you're definitely the hype man that I needed for this. Yeah, for anyone who is hesitant coming on podcast, please do. We would love to hear your story for sure. I thought I was going to be sub 2 hours, but I ended up being like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Bro, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Cool, man. Love, Josh. Thanks.